So today in the pod, we'll talk about what's going on in the league in a bit, but Frank and I, we're going to have a little fun debate, which I think is, I'll be curious what the audience and the listeners think. So feel free to chime in at Frank Seravalli, at Jason Gregor on Twitter. But we were looking at the 2020 NHL Entry Draft, and it's turned out to be a pretty good draft. If you look at that class, obviously Alex Lafreniere went first, and he's had a little bit slower of a start. I think last year's kind of a little bit more of a breakout year for him. Stutzle's being the most offensively gifted player out of that draft with 254 points. There's Raymond, Seth Jarvis, Anton Lundell, Stanley Cup winner, Quinton Byfield. You got John Peterka, JJ Peterka, whose coach loves him. He's really coming on now in Buffalo. Then you got some guys, Sanderson and Brock Faber, of course, on the back end, Gooley and many others. So we were looking at that class, Frank. And so for fun, excluding goalies, but if you had to pick your starting five, who would you put right now of 2020 draft picks?
Well, so one thing I want to clarify, is it players as they are right now, or are we still betting on the future and what they could be?
100% on what you think, because I love, it's still only 4 years since they've been drafted, right? Like a lot of people say you can't tell 7 years realistically. So it's from what you've seen plus what you think some guys are going to grow into over the next few years. So kind of a little bit, if you're drafting today, from what you've seen, who would be your starting three and your two D-men who you think, next year, the following year are going to be the best?
Okay, so I think the best way to do this is agnostically, meaning position agnostic. We're like not worrying about center, right, or left. Like, I want the best collection of 3 forwards and the best 2 defensemen, regardless of which way they shoot. So if that's the ground rule, I mean, I'll start with defense. It's really hard to move away from Jake Sanderson. So I think I would go Jake Sanderson and Brock Faber as my 2 defensemen.
Yes, I would agree wholeheartedly.
And then my 3 forwards, this is where it gets interesting. I think I would go something like Quinton Byfield, Tim Stutzle, and the third one's really a toss-up for me because I might go Seth Jarvis, but Raymond is really good.
So no Alexis Lafreniere?
Probably not right now. I know that he's played more games than everyone else, so we've had more to look at, and obviously it's taken him a little bit of time to really get going, and he's on track this year already for a pretty special season. He's north of a point per game, and he still is kind of just scratching the surface, it feels like. But I think Seth Jarvis, at least right now for me, it's either Jarvis or Raymond.
Okay. Well, pick one. You only get one.
I'm going to go Seth Jarvis.
Seth Jarvis. Okay. I would agree on the defense. I've got Faber and Sanderson. Man, I think Jake Sanderson he's both those guys have Norris potential, but I think Jake Sanderson might have higher Norris potential. Honestly, I just think he's a very special player, elite skater. His mobility is fantastic. Just his vision and how he sees the ice is really impressive to me. I like him a lot. Faber obviously had a great rookie season. I think he's going to be very good, but I think if I had to pick even those two, I would rank Sanderson number one. I think he has the higher ceiling between the two of them. Up front, it's a great debate for lots of different guys. I would Stutzle's there, very gifted offensive player, no question. But I have Alexis Lafreniere. I know that he started slow. I wouldn't have put him in there as early as he was, but he was, and there's nothing you can do about it. But last year in the playoffs, I thought he took over. The thing about him is he still doesn't get, the number one power play unit all the time. And so that's going to be a bit, I think, wait till he gets there. I think that's when he's going to really flourish. So I'm kind of betting on that a little bit. And then the other one's hard because, man, you watch Buffalo. I really like Peterka. I think that guy is coming on, but the one player who is on a deep team, but Anton Lundell does everything well. And I love Byfield. And so I'm torn between Byfield and Lundell. And I think I'm going to take Lundell long-term because of, his hockey sense to me is elite, and he's a great two-way player already. I think he's got good offensive potential. Like, I love Byfield's size, but I'm going to go with Anton Lundell.
He doesn't have offensive potential, really. 44, 30, 38, 35 points. Like, Byfield's already gotten to 55. Lundell's a great two-way player, but he doesn't have any there's no high ceiling offensively for him to get to.
Well, see, I think he's been playing. You got to remember, he hasn't got a chance to play really regularly in their top six yet. And that's what I'm banking on. Like, he's got to a good start this year. I watched him lots in the playoffs the last few years. I love his overall game. And I think Lundell is going to be, he's going to be a 75 to 80 point player here in the next few years.
Wow. I think that's one of the boldest things you've ever said on this podcast. And I'm not kidding. Like, Tyler, we've been telling him to write it down and talk about it, but I don't see it.
All right. I like Lundell a lot, man.
So who are your three? So it's Lundell,
Lafreniere, and Stutzle.
Okay.
But you know what? It's great because, like, Seth Jarvis, a hell of a player. And and I was really bullish on Byfield just because, like, when you're that big and you can skate as well as him, I'm just like, oof. Like, I kind of am like, God, why am I not picking him? But I'm kind of bullish on Lundell. So I wanted to go a little bit off the board, but I think Lundell, and when I look historically at European players, lots of those guys until 22, like, that's when they start to really emerge. And I think that's what we're going to see from him. Historically, it's a big adjustment for some of those guys. And I think the next few years for Lundell, he's obviously got more room to grow. It's a valid point by you, right? Like, he's got more room offensively to gain than the other guys. So maybe playing catch up is a better way to put it, but man, I like him a lot. And I think when he gets more ice time, which eventually he will in the top six in Florida, I think you're going to see his numbers reflected.
So I really thought long and hard actually about Connor Zary.
Really?
Yes. I think Connor Zary gets 70 points this season.
This season? Wow.
Yep.
Whew.
He's at 5 points in 5 games to start. I had him as a breakout star before the season started. I projected him, I think, somewhere between 65 and 70. So I think he's going to be real close. And like, he's a guy I thought long and hard about. But where this gets really interesting, like, we could probably come up with 2 really good lines, right? Like, unbelievable blend of right now and the future. Yeah. But if I put a gun to your head and I said you have to pick a third defenseman,
that's a good question, because there's a few I like.
So I'll run through the options for you. Jamie Drysdale, Caden Gooley, Braden Schneider, Shakir Mukhamadullin.
Wow, there's Damon Hunt from Damon Hunt's going to be, I think, a really good player too, but probably a ways away.
He's not in that category.
No. Yeah, I don't know if there's another. Like, I don't know if Justin Bear.
And what about Mason Lowry? That's a great one. I might actually take him third.
You would take him?
I'm thinking about. I mean, so I think probably right now I'm leaning toward. I'm probably leaning toward Caden Gooley.
Yeah, well, I'm torn because I like Schneider a lot, but Jamie Drysdale, I think he was banged up last year. I watched him in Edmonton. His mobility, man, really stood out to me. And I know he's got to learn to be a better defensive defenseman. I understand that, but I think Drysdale might have the higher ceiling of those guys.
No, I think he does, but I think that's the easy pick. He was the 6th overall pick, and everyone can see what he did right when he entered the league. Like, he kind of instantly became a 30-some point defenseman. My thing is, I guess I'm kind of looking toward a really complete game, and he could have that, but I think Caden Gooley's on track. And I mean,
Braden Schneider's a hell of a D-man too, man.
He
actually, more I think about it, I'm like, he's on a pretty deep Ranger blue line. And when those guys, they kind of move out, I won't be surprised if we see him play even more. So I might actually go with Braden Schneider now that I say it.
I mean, they're all really good picks. And now let me throw this at you. Who would you pick for a goalie?
Oh God. There's Levi. I'm trying to think. Who are Devin Levi? Oh yeah.
There's Drew Comesso.
What's the guy that, he came in early.
There's Callie Klang.
The guy in New Jersey, Nico Dawes. Nico, right? Yep. But I haven't seen much of him lately. I probably, if I had to, you know who I might go with? Yoel Blomqvist.
That's another great one. I think right now I'm probably today's Sunday. Askarov had another shutout this weekend in the AHL.
In the American League, yeah.
He's played 2 games, 120 minutes, 2 shutouts. He stopped all 48 shots that he's faced. We're probably absolute idiots if we don't take him, but
could be right.
I really like Devin Levi and how this season it looks, at least to start, like he's taking another step.
Yeah, the challenge for Askarov is going to be, Frank, he's going to go into San Jose for the first few years, and he is going to get tested because they are not much better than they were last year.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.